Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the Progeny podcast. Today I will be joined by Ahmed Moosa, who is a part-time dentist and also works for Al-Ayn Social Care Foundation. We will be speaking about the duty of Muslim youth in the West and how they represent themselves in the best way. We'll also discuss the great work that Al-Ayn does and how you can get involved in supporting Al-Ayn. Ahmed, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the Progeny podcast. I wanted to ask, first of all, about your career as a dentist. Firstly, when did you come to the UK? And specifically, when did you qualify to become a dentist?
So I was almost born here.
Okay.
I was born in Emirates, but a few months old we came here.
Okay.
And I graduated 6 years ago as a
MashaAllah.
dentist, yeah.
And you're working now as a part-time dentist?
Yes, yeah.
Well, your other time, what do you do in your other spare time while you're not doing dentistry?
So part of my week is split as a dentist, and the other part of the week is working with Al-Ayn.
Okay, inshallah we'll come to your work with Al-Ayn. You've grown up here in the West, in London. I wanted to ask you about what you think, and this is your point of view, the duty of Muslim youth is. How best should we represent ourselves? Because even though, like you said, you were nearly born here, so you came really young. But your identity as a Iraqi, as a Muslim, as someone who follows the Ahlul Bayt, is something that stands out and something that is part of your character. How important is it for you to represent yourself and for the youth in general to represent themselves in the best way as Muslims living in the West?
Yeah, so part of being a good Muslim means that you're a good citizen. So the way you present yourself, the way you are in society is very important. So if you see yourself as a good person or a good Muslim or a good citizen, all those things have a big crossover. So we know a hadith of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, كونوا دعاة لنا صامتين. So be representatives or invite people to us, or be silent advocates for us through your actions, not through your words. And we know that part of Islam, it's very important to have like da'wah or make da'wah, encourage people to learn about the faith. And in the world we live in, where there's a lot of negative press associated with Muslims, each and every one of us has a very important role to play to have a positive impact on those that are in their circles, to change their perception of what Islam is and what a Muslim is.
That's very true. I also feel it's important that not only do we represent ourselves in the best way, but we should be the best for ourselves. For example, when it comes to education, when it comes to getting a degree, getting a good job. Alhamdulillah, from what I've noticed in our community and different communities, the Muslim communities here, they've done well to get an education, to get a degree. If you go to a hospital, you're bound to find a Muslim doctor. If you go, when it comes to engineers, alhamdulillah, lawyers, accountants, in every sort of field where we have people representing Muslims. How important do you feel it is? And I'm asking you because you're someone that's done a very good degree. Is it 5 or 6 years dentistry?
5 years.
5 years of that's just the degree, and then before that I'm guessing the A levels. And how important is it for us to have a degree, to have a good job?
Of course, it's very important. Living in the West, and especially living in the West, we have a lot of opportunity to make the most of what we want and to make the most of the services available. So it's actually easier for us to be able to achieve and to
we have an opportunity.
We have many opportunities, alhamdulillah. Actually, this reminds me of a story. My father was taking me to my 11 plus exam. We were applying to QE Boys, so it's a grammar school.
Yeah.
And he saw me. I was really nervous. I was sitting next to him in the car, and he saw me like you could obviously tell I was really nervous. So as we were driving, he's like, Baba, you're lucky you're here. It doesn't matter what happens with this exam. If you fail here, you have another opportunity. If this doesn't work, something else will come about. And he was saying, when I was in Iraq, if you fall ill on your exam day, that's it. You have to retake the year. If your car breaks down, that's it. You've missed the exam.
Yeah.
And as he said that, the car broke down. On the way to do the exam, I was so nervous. It was uphill. We had to push the car to the side.
Wow.
We went to one of the local shops went in, and my dad was like, we asked to see if there was any taxis available to take us. And he said it will take ages for the next taxi to come.
Oh no.
And the same thing with the bus. So we went outside. We thought we might as well just wait for the bus to take us there. And we saw a police car. So my dad's like, "Urkud." So like run to the police car. I went to the police car. And my dad explained, he said, "My son's got an exam, 11 plus exam, and our car's broken down. Could you help us?" He said, "Hold on." And then he asked, and I went to my exam in a police car.
Wow.
I didn't get in, but the essence of the story, I know I went on a tangent, was the importance of understanding the level of, or the amount of opportunities we have and making the most of it to try and have a positive influence on society.
That's a beautiful story. A lot of people don't know how privileged we are, and I'm talking about our communities. We've got an opportunity, for example, to study, to get a job, to even now, when you have a degree, it's very easy for you to get a job. I'm comparing it to places maybe where I'm from originally, Iraq, for example, where unemployment rates are very high. People with degrees are doing jobs that they shouldn't be, because they're qualified people. But I saw recently a clip of someone who's I believe it was a qualified engineer or something, and he was selling tea in the street. So it just shows that alhamdulillah we have the opportunity, and it's important for us to take advantage of that. Coming to what I called spare time. It's not really your spare time, but you made time for this, because anyone that's a qualified dentist will usually try and do as many hours as they can. But from my understanding, is you've made time to be with Al-Ayn. How did you start with Al-Ayn? Were you there from the beginning? And most importantly, why?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start telling you about why Al-Ayn moved and expanded outside of Iraq, and then how we became part of this journey. So someone from Sweden, someone living in Sweden was visiting Iraq, and they found out about
Al-Ayn.
the Al-Ayn Sadaqa box, actually, in particular.
Yeah.
They explained to him the value of Mizat al-Qabd, or the fact that the money placed into the box is as though it reached the hand of the needy person.
Okay.
And for himself, living in Sweden, he's like, I want to be able to pay sadaqah. I want to be able to give sadaqah. It's not fair. Can we do something here? Can we have some boxes
For
in
those
Sweden?
that don't understand, what does it mean? What does it mean? For example, if now I put change in this box, what does that qabd mean? What's the value that this box adds than me putting sadaqah in my own box at home? I make a box, for example, and I say this is a sadaqah box. I write sadaqah on it and I put sadaqah. What's the difference? What's the qabd?
Very important question, and it's something that we constantly talk about. So to receive the reward of sadaqah or charity, it needs to reach the hand of the needy person.
Very good. So to receive the reward.
To receive the reward of sadaqah, it needs to reach the hand of the needy person.
Correct.
Sayyid al-Sistani, who instructed Al-Ayn to be set up, has wilaya, or sees himself as having wilaya over the fuqara, or those who are needy.
Correct.
And by ijazah of His Eminence, Sayyid al-Sistani, he has said that putting money into this box is as though you have put it into the hands of the needy
person,
because the box represents the Sayyid and the Sayyid represents the needy person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when this person from Sweden found the immense value of this sadaqah box, he was saying, can we do something? Can we have some sadaqah boxes in Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
So they sent some a crate of sadaqah boxes in Sweden, and the work expanded, and now there are...
So it started in Sweden.
Sadaqah, yeah, and then soon after it's established itself here in the UK. In Sweden, there are over 5 offices now. There are coordinators and representatives across Sweden.
Wow.
There's an office in Norway. There's an office in Holland, in Germany, in England, in America, in Canada, Australia. Most places where there's a community, there's a registered office operating to support the orphan children of Iraq.
So this is how Al-Ayn started in the West. How did you start with Al-Ayn?
So the Sheikh Amjad, who is the general supervisor of Al-Ayn.
When
who's
did they
been,
first get to the UK?
I think nearly 6 years ago.
Okay.
He has been put in place by Sayyid Sistani, who has said that the condition of Al-Ayn receiving this status, amongst other things like having all the costs covered of its operations, is that it is under the supervision of Sheikh Amjad.
Okay.
So Sheikh Amjad himself, in the beginning, would visit places where there was demand for a location to be set up, for people to support. And during his visit here, in one of the events that took place, I heard about Al-Ayn and I was really inspired, and I felt that I had something that I could give that would make a difference. And alhamdulillah, that's how it started.
So they were looking for, and I'm guessing Al-Ayn, even now, recently I saw an advertisement where there's jobs opportunities that are available. So they're always expanding.
Alhamdulillah. Again, we know ma kana lillah yanmu. So what is for Allah will surely develop and improve. And the sheer passion that people have working and supporting this cause is very contagious.
It's important that you say that, it's very contagious. Anyone that I've spoken to about Al-Ayn, or any event that I've been to that someone from Al-Ayn has spoken about, will inspire people. The concept of Al-Ayn is so powerful that anyone with a good heart will, or anyone that has the love of the Ahlul Bayt and understands that, even our wealth, it's not really our wealth. As we say, it's amana, it's something that God's blessed us with. And because God's blessed us with this great blessing of having wealth, for example, we need to give some back to those that need it. So that's the power of Al-Ayn. But for those that don't know about Al-Ayn, what is the purpose of Al-Ayn, which is a UK registered charity as well?
Yeah, so the Al-Ayn UK branch, like as you said, is a registered charity. We have an entity. Our website is www.alayn.co.uk, and you can find out more details about the work, anything that we've missed out in our podcast today. The initial purpose of Al-Ayn was to document the cases of victims of the sectarian violence and terrorism. So again, through instruction of Sayyid Sistani, he instructed 2 or 3 people at a time to go and visit the families of those who lost their lives for no fault of their own due to the violence, to go and document their cases, to go and film what happened, to correlate it against official documentation, to prove that these people lost their lives for no fault of their own, but for their beliefs, for their aqidah. During these visits, they realized that a lot of these families were in need of support and were living below the poverty line. So they relayed this information back to the office of Sayyid Sistani, who then instructed Al-Ayn. And by the way, the name of Al-Ayn is Al-Ayn, the eye, Al-Ayn allati tara, the eye that sees.
Wow.
Then developed into Al-Ayn allati tara, thumma Al-Ayn allati tar'a, so the eye that cares. That's why Al-Ayn comes from.
Okay,
so
that's
the
interesting.
work,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so expanded from documenting to then actually providing support. And for me, growing up in the West and hearing lots of negative things about the way Eastern organizations work or things associated with their religious authority, lots of negative vibes, lots of question marks, misconceptions. I saw this as an opportunity, a golden opportunity actually. It's one way. There's service to the orphan children, the needy orphan children. And secondly, it's an opportunity to display one of the many services that the religious institution is providing to those in need in a very professional and a very dignified manner, and from within a place which is known for corruption and things not to work. So that's what gave me the extra drive to try and make sure that as many people know about this as possible, to try and change their perceptions.
I remember when I visited Al-Ayn office in Baghdad, one of the offices, the manager there, or the office manager, mentioned something really beautiful, and I heard this again later from Sheikh Amjad, and that was that Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani receives gifts from different people that come and visit him. different visitors from around the world would gift something to Sayyid Sistani. And the beautiful thing was that Sayyid Sistani makes sure that this gift does not stay in the house, and it has to be given to those that need it, those orphans, those people that are in need of it, because he is not in need of it. And that really shows this fatherhood figure, this figure of the Marja'iyya, which is represented by Sayyid Ali Sistani today. And again reminds us of my master and Sayyid Sistani's master, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who had this title of Abu al-Yatama, the father of the orphans. And of course our religious authority, our leaders today are following in those footsteps, are leading examples, which a lot of people, again, those that are, let's say, misguided or have not been informed, do not know about this. Let's go to what Al-Ayn does, because
you mentioned Sayyid Sistani and the father figure. It reminded me, it triggered a story that I'd like to share.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So Al-Ayn obviously today cares for over 59,000 children.
Wow.
So it's an immense number.
Of course.
And each child would receive at least £55 a month, which is the standard sponsorship.
Nice.
I'm going to go on another tangent. This number hasn't been picked randomly. So this value is based on a study which determined what is needed to lift a child out of poverty.
Okay.
So when we say sponsor a child, and we know of the hadith of the value and the manzila of the one who sponsors,
of course,
you must make sure that they are no longer in need. And part of Al-Ayn's ethos actually is, once a child receives support from Al-Ayn, they no longer receive support from anywhere else. That's actually a condition.
Okay.
There are so many needy children, number one, that we need many organizations to help all of them.
Yeah.
And two, we believe in the dignity of the child.
That's very important.
Once they receive support from us, we want to make sure that they are comfortable enough not to need to ask elsewhere.
Elsewhere, very nice.
Back to my second tangent.
Yeah, please.
So Sayyid Sistani, again, we have the standard sponsorship, and we have those who are academically talented receive the equivalent of £80 a month. And for me, again, this was a very nice thing to know, that even those who are doing well are encouraged to do so, encouraged to carry on. And they're told, if you carry on, if you're the top of your class, you'll receive even more support. And their sponsorship continues until graduation. So early on in Al-Ayn's development, a group of the mutafawwiqeen, or those who are academically talented, got the end of year results. And normally in Iraq and in most places actually, when you receive your end of year results, you're with pride, you want to show it to your parents.
To your father. Yeah.
Unfortunately, these children obviously are orphaned. So they thought of taking them to visit Sayyid Sistani to show them their end of year certificates. So they went over to the Sayyid and they said, since we have lost our father, you are now our father. We wanted to share with you these our results, which was very, very emotional.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which you can imagine. And the advice from Sayyid Sistani at the time was that we want the future leaders to be amongst these children. We want the future people who make decisions to be from these children. Since then, I was listening to a presentation of someone in our Australia branch of Al-Ayn who was updating the community there, and he mentioned that one of those children by the name of Ahmed is now a third-year medical student, mashallah.
Wow, amazing.
So from that story, and they followed him up. And that's something, again, it's the holistic care that continues into adulthood.
I've had I could speak all day about the bounty of Allah that we have, which is represented by the Marja'iyya. I've had the honor of visiting Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani on several occasions, and I remember the last visit was probably back in 2018, and I remember that there was a man that, as we were waiting to visit him, there was a man with two children, quite an old man, maybe in his 70s or 80s, that had come with two children who were probably 7 or 9. Yeah, between that ages. And he had come, so they were obviously not his kids. And I was in the next room, but I could sort of slightly hear the conversation that took place, and that was when this person, when it was his turn to see the Sayyid, he said, that my son was part of those that were killed fighting terrorists ISIS, and these are his two children. and the Sayyid showed this figure of the father of the orphans when he took the two orphans and he brought them close to him, and he with his hand he placed it on their heads. And again, this showed the bounty. I say it's a bounty from Allah that we have a figure today who is really representing the strength of this faith, the love of this faith, representing the true essence of this faith, that of caring, of love, of peace. And one way is this Al-Ayn, this beautiful project. And I want to get into the actual work that Al-Ayn does. So we know there's firstly the sadaqah boxes. What other work is there that gets done?
So with sadaqah boxes, the money placed into them goes to sponsor some of these children. I mentioned 59,000 children today are being lifted out of poverty, and these are needy children.
Because of these boxes?
No, 59,000 is the total number.
Okay.
20,000 children are being lifted out of poverty from these sadaqah
boxes. Okay.
We know that Al-Ayn also runs on zero admin. All the running costs are covered by the Office of His Eminence.
That's what I wanted to ask you as well, because a lot of people don't know this. They say, so is any of this money that I'm putting going to the staff that are working for the admin work?
No.
Okay.
So all the running costs are covered by the office, like I mentioned, of the Sayyid Sistani. Or, again, there are some people who are beautiful and artistic in the way they give. So we have examples of wealthy merchants who say, I'm not going to support the orphan children. I will pay the salaries of this office for a whole year because they are serving their children. I want to serve this people who serve the orphan children, which is extremely beautiful. Yeah. So just last year, on an average of 1,000 boxes was given out a day globally.
Wow, that's quite.
Yeah, so they're very important.
A big number.
From our perspective, there's the huge value of sadaqah, of receiving that reward of sadaqah. Yeah. And from one side, for us, and from the other side, it's the change it's having on the lives of these children. So one way is sadaqah, through these sadaqah boxes. Another form of support for these orphan children is through monthly child sponsorship, which we mention, and you can find details online. But again, what's beautiful about the care of Al-Ayn, and one other thing that really got me attracted to the services that Al-Ayn is providing to these orphan children, is that it's not just money, take it and go. There are checks that are taken in place to make sure that these families are needy, and these checks happen on more than one occasion. So they happen upon registration of the family, and at least biannually there are checks to make sure that the families who are receiving support are in need of support. And just last month or 2 months ago, we have hundreds of supporters from the UK, alhamdulillah, who sponsor children. We update them. Sometimes the children they sponsor no longer need sponsorship. So imagine how nice it is to receive an email saying, dear so-and-so, the child you're sponsoring has been lifted out of poverty and no longer needs your support.
Very good.
It's very, very nice to see that.
For them now to find another child to sponsor.
Yeah, so would you like to sponsor another child? Exactly. Yeah. So we have lots to celebrate about in terms of achievements, but the reality is that the need is very big. So we can say 59,000, this 1,000 boxes, but there are so many children that are in need. And unfortunately, with disasters, with violence, with problems, it's only cool when it's in the news. When it's no longer part of the news, when it's no longer the headline that has been talked about, no one's really interested. So it's a bit of a challenge for us to make sure that the theme and these children are not being forgotten, because those who passed away have passed, but we are responsible for those who are left behind.
What about the sadaqah jariyah that you have? What does that involve, and how does that work?
Thank you. I keep going on tangents. Thank you for guiding me back in.
No worries.
So there's financial support, there's medical support that is provided, there's psychological rehabilitation, and that's extremely important.
Very nice.
We originally come from a society which where mental health is a bit of a taboo. Yeah, you're either okay or you're crazy.
You're crazy, insane.
There's no in between. There's no suffering. There's no PTSD. There's no anxiety. And the reality is that most of these children won't really die of hunger, but they'll be suffering
because maybe they've seen their parents.
They've seen. Some of the stories are horrific. They're unbelievable. No one should ever experience what some of these children have experienced. So the way Al-Ayn operates is it's thinking about how to lift this child out of poverty, how to empower the child. And we always say child because we want people to remember that we're talking about children.
Yeah.
Sometimes you say orphan, you think of something far, and they're poor, they're far, we can't really connect, but they're children.
Yeah.
And everything that Al-Ayn is doing is to make sure that these children have as equal an opportunity as their counterparts and their peers in society. So with this psychological rehabilitation, there are programs in place, there are social workers who are present to highlight, to first of all notice how these children play. We have play areas in our offices, which is, again, you think, what? You have people in need, why are you spending money on play areas? In fact, they call them psychological rehabilitation centers. They need them. It's one way to get them to come to us so that we can see them regularly. It's a way for us to be able to see how they interact with other children,
monitor them,
identify if there are any particular discrepancies in their behavior to try and help them overcome their troubles. So, Sadaqa Jariyah, come back to it. There is a reason why I'm talking about this. Al-Ayn, since its inception, has cared for over 100,000 children. 100,000 children.
Wow.
So we know what these children need. We know what they need to develop into adolescents, into adults, and we know what is very important to help them try and be part of society. And one thing Al-Ayn recognized was the need for these psychological rehabilitation centers as well as vocational training centers. So the first one opened its doors in Baghdad, in Al-Kadhimiyya, last year.
I visited that.
Markaz al-Anjum al-Zahira.
Yeah.
One of our coordinators here in the UK visited last summer, and she said she felt like she was in a part of heaven.
Wow.
So it's when I talk about this, I'm very passionate about this because I've seen on multiple occasions the positive impact of the work that these projects are having on these children. So this vocational training center was designed to help those children who maybe were displaced because of the violence or who did not continue with their education, and they suddenly finished school and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Normally, again, with a normal, like a standard family structure, you have someone pushing you this way, someone pushing you that way, this person advising you to do this, someone else advising you to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the sad reality is that with these orphan children, there aren't many people who are really bothered or pushing in these areas. So they find themselves all of a sudden not knowing what to do next.
They support them.
These vocational training work centers have workshops. So they train these youth with skills on hairdressing, on sewing, IT skills, mobile phone repairs, crafts, cooking, becoming chefs. So imagine attending somewhere, getting paid to attend on a daily basis, coming out with a certificate to become certified,
and having a skill
and having a vocation. Not just that. They are even part of their program is work experience, and they help them allocate a job.
Very good.
So my last visit was in December.
Yeah.
They showed us a proposal. Again, a proposal. Imagine you're thinking of an orphaned child who grew up below the poverty line, probably subject to a lot. The violence that they witnessed was probably very, very gruesome. Imagine growing up, going through some sort of education and coming out with a vocation and then writing a business plan. So he said, my name is this. I would like to borrow 600,000 dinars. I want to spend 400,000 on 2 months rent. I want to spend this much on some of the items in the shop, because this guy was trying to open, I can't remember, to be honest. It was either a hairdresser or a mobile phone shop. He said, this is my plan. It was a whole business proposal. Yeah. And I anticipate I will return it on within 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
He had signed it. And there were 2 witnesses that had signed it, and the money was given. This was on the 4th of December 2018. We visited in January, not December. On the 29th of December 2018, he had repaid his debts.
Wow.
He said, Alhamdulillah, Allah gave me rizq, and I've overachieved, and I want this money to be there to support someone else.
I wanted to ask you about you visiting Iraq, and if I know, I'm sure you've got a lot of stories to share with us, but maybe something that stands out for you, or something that, because like with my work, for example, I may see someone that, for example, says, I saw this show or I done this and it changed my life. and that has an impact that makes you realize, okay, you know what I'm doing is worth it. You know, I've achieved something, because sometimes you don't see the results firsthand, especially if you're in the office, you're, I don't know, whether it's collecting the boxes, whether it's counting the money, whether it's collecting toys, but sometimes you're not seeing your results, if you know what I mean. So what maybe a story or two that you can share with our listeners that sort of, I wouldn't say entrusted, because you know this project is in the trust of Allah, but made you realize how important what your job is. I've put you on the spot.
No, you haven't put me on the spot. What I'm thinking to tell you, which is that during these visits, every time you see someone, every interaction you see is an inspiration.
Wow.
Every interaction, if it's someone that's working to support these orphan children in the office, if it's the driver who's taking us between places, if it's the families of these orphan children themselves, is a source of inspiration and also a source of guilt. Sometimes you may feel that you're making a difference, you're contributing, but we always feel guilty by the level of support that those who provide the support are giving, and how humble and content those who are the beneficiaries are. So we visited, I don't know where to start. This needs just podcasts just telling you of these stories.
Sure.
Maybe I'll share with you the story of what was behind our campaign for this Muharram. So this Muharram's campaign is based on sponsorships. We're trying to increase the number of people sponsoring these orphan children, and it's based on a story of a boy by the name of Rida. And the campaign's name is My Hero, inspired by the heroes of Karbala and the heroes of the orphan children. And in the name of your heroes, sponsor an orphan child. Rida was a child we saw in the Imam al-Baqir complex in the outskirts of Najaf. Imam al-Baqir complex is one of 5 housing complexes that Al-Ayn has built or is in the process of building. This is a completed one. It's 66 units, 66 brand new houses, housing those most in need in terms of orphan children. Part of the media team were in one of the houses visiting one of the families to talk to them, and we were stood outside whilst the boys were playing football. They stopped. Rida came to me and he said, Ammo, have you come in Al-Ayn? I said, I haven't been Al-Ayn yet. He said, next time you come, make sure you, outside poll number, he gave me the poll number, Mawkib, and again he told me the name of the Mawkib. Come inside and ask for Ibn Abu Salih. Ask for Rida Ibn Abu Salih. You'll see my dad's photos on top of the Mawkib. I'll serve you coffee, or I'll serve you tea. And inside, I felt very humbled. This was an orphan child, and he was trying to talk to me. He said, Ammo, do you know how my dad died? I said, no, tell me. He said, my dad was in Mosul. He was opening up explosives, and it blew up on him. Like, I don't know what, do I look in his eyes? Do I look down? But he was proud. His sense of pride was unbelievable. He said, I went and got him from Baghdad airport. Remember, I'm telling you, this is Najaf. He said his hand was gone, his leg was gone, his friends were also gone. And then he was continuing. He was like, do you want to see photos? Shall I show you? He just wants to celebrate his father and what he had done. He asked one of the boys in the new neighborhood, and they went back home, brought the phone back, and he was flicking through photos. He's like, this is my dad, this is my dad, this is me with my dad. And for me, that story just kind of just summarized everything. The children that we're looking after, or again, it's very embarrassing to say the children that are being looked after are these children like Rida. Who are in circumstances not for no fault of their own, whose circumstances are dire and difficult for the sake of others, for the security of others, for the ability of others to do ziyarah safely, for the safety of our holy shrine. So no matter what we give, no matter what we support, we'll never be able to compensate for this. So again, and this is a common theme, learning from these children that they're proud, they are content. They are content. They are content.
That's so important.
As we were leaving, he said, "Oh, Ammo, we forgot to serve you chai." So he has this this gene of hospitality. I could see why his father did what he did. I could see that from Rada's behavior as a 12-year-old boy. He was keen to serve us. He knows, and his first theme was about serving Zawar, serving. Yeah. So it's unbelievable what we learn from these children. If you don't ask me questions, I'm gonna keep talking.
I want to listen to these stories.
Yeah, we were talking to another orphan child, in one of the places, in one of the Al-Ayn locations. And by the way, Al-Ayn has over 150 locations in Iraq alone.
In Iraq, wow.
So
around the world, how many locations?
So in Iraq, 150, and registered in 10 countries, I think.
Okay.
9 or 10 countries. There are several countries that are in the process of being signed. That's why I'm saying 9 or 10. Yeah, but we know. Okay. Members of the Al-Ayn UK team were speaking to this girl, and she said, "Yeah, we have a sadaqah box, and we put money for the fuqara, for those who are in need." This was a needy orphan child.
Who's doing for her?
Has a sadaqah box and giving, and again, this is something that's, if you take a moment to reflect on it, it's mind-blowing. She doesn't see herself as faqira.
Allahu Akbar.
She doesn't see herself as needy. That shows the level of dignified support that is being provided to these families. She is being taught the value of looking at those who are less fortunate and giving and making a difference. And she's proud to talk about it, and she's mentioning it. And again, this was another story or another interaction that made us really stop and think, wow, this is what we are part of is truly amazing.
I tell a lot of people that go ziyarah especially for Arba'in, and they go, comfortably. We go. I speak for myself. I go comfortably. I book a flight, go to Najaf, land in the airport. Alhamdulillah, the airport is now expanded. I come out, whether it's a hotel, of course I'm from Najaf, so I'll go back home. But I'll be comfortable, and then I'll do the walk to the shrine of Imam al-Hussein to Karbala. I'll do my ziyarah, the whole way I'm being served water, hot drinks, food, whatever you like. And I tell people, let's not forget that this ziyarah is continuing today. Number one, because of the fatwa of the Marji'iyya. Number two, because of those people that gave their lives for their dignity, for their shrines, for their faith, for their country. And that blood that was spilt in defense of us, we have responsibility, because these people that have sacrificed themselves now have their families. There's widows, and there's orphans that need looking after. And another thing that I wanna, because alhamdulillah, again, I have the opportunity to speak to some of these children, and I want to add to your stories, is people need to understand that a lot of people that lost their breadwinners, that lost the person that was looking after them due to terrorism, they were already poor. They were already living a life where was full
poverty,
of hardship, full of pain and poverty, and now they've lost their only source of a meal a day that they were having. So I feel, as us Muslims living in the West, it's a responsibility, and we're going to be asked about this responsibility of looking after these poor children, as you say. How can we get involved? How can people listening to this get involved? Even if those, someone might say, I've already got a box at home, I'm already sponsoring a child at home.
Sponsor too.
Ahsant. What can people do? And especially, you mentioned the Muharram project that you have. What can people do this Muharram to get more involved with Al-Ayn?
So we're fairly new in the West,
so
probably half the age of Al-Ayn in Iraq. So there's a lot of awareness raising that is necessary. We need people to know more about the work of Al-Ayn. There are so many unique factors. So for someone who likes or is inspired or motivated by professionalism, many people have been to see the work of Al-Ayn and can see through our social media, through the services that it provides, that it is second to none in terms of professionalism, and it is providing support to the needy. If you value the opinion of the religious authority, Al-Ayn was set up under instruction of the religious authority, and it has so much faith in the foundation that all its running costs are covered. If you take value in the opinion of international organizations, Al-Ayn has special consultative status within the United Nations.
Yeah.
So Al-Ayn is present and talks about the cause of these families and the needy. That's something for everyone to be inspired by.
Is there roles for volunteers at Al-Ayn now? Can people volunteer if they've got spare time, maybe?
Yeah, we're always taking, mashallah, we have a huge response from people who wish to volunteer, but we're always looking for more volunteers, especially in different parts of the country. We have coordinators or people who our point of contact within the community, who update the community on the activities of Al-Ayn, on the special programs that Al-Ayn is involved in. And we are always in need of people in different areas, especially. So in London, we have many supporters already. We have supporters in 19. We have coordinators and supporters in 19 other cities in London, in the UK. But there are other places where we want to be present everywhere. We also have a toys campaign. Again, so initially when people say, why are you wasting time with toys? These kids are, again, not kids. These just
they need
aren't
food.
you wasting food? But they're children, and it's just trying to educate.
That's very important.
It's educating, or it's trying to set the standard of giving, and that's another thing that inspires me about Al-Ayn. It's not just providing a service to those who are in need. It's setting the standard of how one should give. I'm going to go on a tangent.
Go for it, bro.
All right.
I love these tangents. They're the best.
Yeah, we were visiting one of the prominent scholars here, presenting to them the work of Al-Ayn for the first time, and he sees the problems within the society here, the problems young families face, young children, the lack of not being content, always wanting more. I was explaining, and he said that from his interactions with people, he thinks that the two most important things one should instill in their children is salah and zakah, or prayer and some form of charity. He thinks those two are keystones in raising your children. And he brought some hadith to back this up by, but his point was through volunteering, through giving, even if it, for example, with children, if it's volunteering to give their toys. We have children who, for example, say, for my birthday, I want the toys to go to Al-Ayn. Or they say, for my birthday, I'll give half of my toys, or I give whatever it may be. It's teaching children the power and the pleasure gained from giving.
Yeah.
And there's this warped perception in society that satisfaction comes from gaining and increasing what you have. But the reality is that it's actually by giving. The more you give, the more you feel content. The more you provide for those who are less needy, the more you feel content. And for me, that struck a chord when he mentioned the salah and zakah, charity. There are lots of good things that one could do, obviously, and they all have a lot of reward. But these two were very important in his opinion for the well-being of families and communities wherever they may be.
Okay, thank you for that. Of course, we're going to let you take this box with you. This box has been in the office. So inshallah, we've got another one as well. So encourage everyone listening to, if you don't have any one of these sadaqah boxes.
We also have an app now.
Okay, very good.
We have an app.
Yes, that was this week or last week, I think it came out.
We re-announced, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we announced it. So you can download an app so you can pay sadaqah with
your card.
Yeah, not even with your card, but if you've got Apple Pay or Android Pay, then it's just a couple of taps, and then you've paid sadaqah.
I find the box is very important because again, it helps with if you've got kids in the family, then you encourage them to actually put, and encourage them that this is your way of giving charity. And this Muharram, you said that you're pushing for more child sponsorship.
Yes.
What are the different packages, just to remind our listeners?
So a standard sponsorship is the equivalent of £55 a month. And if you gift aid that, then the gift aid amount also goes to the child.
Very good.
Which is, again, something to keep in mind. Again, if you have these sadaqah boxes, what's gift aided also goes to sponsor these children, and it's a very important point to mention. There's a standard sponsorship. There's those who have medical needs. They receive £70 a month, and those who are academically talented receive £80 a month. The reality is, again, we have people waiting to sponsor children who have a medical need or who are academically talented. They get sponsored straight away. But unfortunately, what we call again standard sponsorship, people want to do something. I want to sponsor a child from Najaf. I want to sponsor this. But what about the other children who are in need? And we have over 5,000 children waiting to be sponsored, who are registered and have gone through the whole process to identify them as needy. So inshallah we can.
I really hope
that
that you can reach your target and more. So inshallah, maybe in Muharram we can get the 5,000. I want to ask you, how do you see, and this is again because each person will have a different opinion on this, and maybe those that are in senior positions will see it differently. But how do you see Al-Ayn in 10 years or 20 years, or how do you see Al-Ayn in the future? And is there any plans that you might want to share with us that for Al-Ayn in the next 20, 30 years?
I've heard this question being asked to Sheikh Amjad himself a few times, and I'm going to try and repeat the answer as I have heard him answer it. The situation in Iraq is such that it's very difficult to plan for 20 or 30 years.
Okay.
Unfortunately, every few years we get thrown with Al-Qaeda or get thrown with sectarian violence, and then we get something called Daesh that irritates us, and then we get this violence and that violence. So, and there's a big urgent need now that we are trying to just keep up with what is needed, with the needs for these orphan children, in addition to the other services like this psychological rehabilitation and the vocational training centers which are being built. So from that perspective, we can only plan 3 years or 5 years ahead. Inshallah, in the future, the beneficiaries will not just be in Iraq. So that's one area. Inshallah, there'll be beneficiaries in terms of people receiving support, not just within Iraq. And the reason why this hasn't happened earlier is because Al-Ayn wanted to master the work and make sure that the work is done to a very high standard before branching out. That's number one. Number two, inshallah, the situation will be where the orphan children will no longer maybe need support. So the services that Al-Ayn have set up and provided will not just be for orphan children. It will be for other children or other youth who would want to benefit from these services. And the services that are provided aren't just suitable for those who are orphaned. Any sort of difficulty, any sort of trouble, then these children would be able to benefit from. Can I go on one more tangent?
Go ahead. I love.
We visited a graduate of the barber workshop.
Yeah.
In Baghdad. We arrived. Someone that looked like a kid. He unlocked the door. We went inside, and he was showing us the barbershop. It was a perfectly normal, complete barbershop. And he was showing us. He said, "I opened this 2 months ago. I got for him. He borrowed from his friends and family, and he set up, and he's paying them back. And he's employed someone. Imagine. So he's an employer. He's a business owner. I think his name was Haider. Had his certificate on the wall.
The Al-Ayn certificate.
The Al-Ayn graduate. I'm a graduate of this workshop. There was a boy with him. Again, I won't say his name. He was saying, "Why can't I get a certificate too? I know how to be a barber." The situation is that normal children growing up in normal backgrounds are feeling a sense, not jealousy. They want to be like these children with the services that are provided, which is so amazing. So he also wants a certificate. And again, that was something really nice. And you were asking about the plans for the future. So this is an example of something that will inspire generations to come as well, inshallah.
Inshallah. Well, Ahmed, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
A show full of tangents.
Sorry about that.
No. It's I think our listeners will definitely appreciate the work yourself and those at Al-Ayn do. I'm sure a lot of the people in our community are already supporting Al-Ayn. I'm hoping, inshallah, they can increase in their support. May Allah increase in your tawfiq to do more for these orphans. And hopefully we'll have you maybe soon to give us an update on all the great work that Al-Ayn do. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.